What is the ego? Have I asked that question many times through years? And now I've come so far in my research about it and my observation of it, my own ego and other people's egos in my work as a coach, that I hope I can provide a reasonable explanation of what the ego is, at least my understanding of what the ego is. I'll start with the word. The word ego has nothing to do with being egotistical. It's just a Latin word that means I. The ego is the thinker. It is the one sending out our thoughts when we're not present in the now. And supposedly we're not present about 95% of the time. So it is almost as if the ego is running our lives. In fact, many people think they are their egos. They think they are their thoughts. But we are so much greater than that. We are the ones who can observe our thoughts. The ego is a part of us, but it is not us. The ego is almost like an entity on its own. And if it was an entity, it would be a real annoying one because it never stops talking. It loves analyzing everything and judging everything as good, bad, right or wrong, judging situations, people and ourselves. And it loves talking about the future, what could happen and plan everything and how we should be prepared. And it loves dwelling in the past, what he said, what she did, what we could have done better. And the ego doesn't even mind switching sides in arguments, just in order to keep on talking. However, the ego is no entity. The ego is just a construct of our past. It is a collection of our previous experiences. And not only that, it's a collection of our interpretations of our previous experiences. And these interpretations can end up being a little bit of whatever. So these thoughts can end up being a little bit of whatever as well. Because when we interpret, when we understand a situation, we do it through our personality type, our current emotional state, through the previous experiences that we have. So we're regarding this situation through a lens of all of that. And since the ego is a construct of our past, it cannot make anything new up. It cannot create new thoughts, and it cannot create ideas. Ideas come from somewhere else, and I will talk about that soon. But the ego is very, very creative in making it seem as if the past is new ideas and new thoughts. But it can only use the past to analyze the present and to predict the future. And the ego is not the source of thought. The ego is the one sending out the thoughts, but the original source of thought is the subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind is full of programs. You can call them beliefs or truths. And these programs are imprinted in us from childhood and all of our previous life until this time. And sometimes the soul is even bringing programs from other lifetimes that it wants to transcend in this lifetime. Since this lifetime is a lifetime of ascension, we have the opportunity to transcend so much. And that is also why this lifetime can feel like a big challenge sometimes. So these programs are imprinted in us mostly from childhood, because when we are kids, our brain waves are moving in a different state. They are moving in the theta state, which is the programmable state into the subconscious mind. And we can use this state in hypnosis and deep meditation as well. But when we're kids, we are supposed to get programmed. We are supposed to be conditioned and learn how this world works, how it is. We're supposed to learn how we're supposed to be and act as humans to be accepted into this human pact that we're born into. And we're supposed to learn how society works. And all of this is seen through a child's eyes. That is why it can end up being a little bit of whatever in there. And that is why it's so good to have our tools to be able to manage the ego mind. And I have a separate video on the subconscious mind. These programs from the subconscious mind, when we're not present, they are getting filtered through the ego mind and being turned into thoughts. And one of the most common negative programs in the subconscious mind, because there are many negative ones, about 70% some say, because the brain is so hardwired into reacting to the negative things as a survival mechanism. And one of the most prevalent ones is, I am not good enough. And this will not come as a word-to-word thought, because the language of the subconscious mind is images and emotions. So it will come as a subtle feeling of, I could have done more, I could have been better. And this is being turned into thoughts about what we could have done better and been more of. So that is why it's so good to have the tools to manage our ego mind, to be able to observe our ego mind, because in this time of ascension that is spanning through years, and it's getting worse and worse, or better and better, depends what perspective you choose to put on it. There is so much energy coming to Earth, and energy is good because it's light. Light is good, but it is triggering our shadows. And one of the most common shadows is, I am not good enough. And that is what the soul came here for, to transcend this program that we are good enough, to know that we are good enough. I have identified 10 of the most important tasks of the ego. The ego has many tasks, but the primary one, I think, is to keep us safe. Keep us safe from making a fool out of ourselves, keep us safe from any discomfort at all. It wants to keep us safe from getting hurt, physical and emotional. And this often stops us from taking the next step in our lives, as you said, Pelle. So well said. And it thinks it keeps us safe through control, which is the second task. Controlling life, not creating life, controlling life and controlling people in our lives and controlling the future. And it is managing this control through analyzing everything and judging everything and everyone and ourselves. And mainly judging ourselves as not being enough. And it also likes to identify. That is an important task. It wants to identify ourselves. This is me and this is my life. And it keeps this sense of identification through attachments, which is also an important task. It is attaching to many things outside of us. This is me, this is my body, these are my clothes, this is my style, this is my hair, these are my friends, this is my house, these are my achievements, this is my career. Mistaking all of these outside things for who we really are. And it also likes to keep this sense of identification through another task, which is to compare. Compare and compete. Am I better than others, or am I maybe inferior than others? And this just leads to feelings of either superiority, I am so good, or inferiority, that I am not enough. And it also likes to keep this sense of identification through defending. It really needs to defend this identity. It doesn't want to admit faults. It resists criticism. And it can often blame others as well. I don't make mistakes. And another very important task is to tell stories. This incessant talking, ongoing stories about everything and anything and whatever. Stories about me and my life, stories about other people, stories about the future, what could happen, stories about the past, what did happen, which most often isn't even true. And the last important task that I have identified might be one of the most important ones, because this is one of the reasons we were given the ego when we entered this life as souls. That is separation. To keep up this illusion of separation, that we are separated from each other and that we are separated from Source. Because if we knew that we are connected to everything and everyone, if we knew that we are an eternal soul that is living in love and light, it wouldn't be any difference. It wouldn't be any different from where the soul is living now. And the soul wanted a new experience. That is what the soul wants. Experience, experience, experiences. In this life, in other lives, in other planets, in other dimensions. It's all about experience. And all experience is valid. Even though it looks dark, it's an experience of darkness. So the ego wants to keep us separated, and it has maintained this important task for hundreds of years. But now, in this time of ascension, it is time to realize more and more how connected we are, what power we really have to create our own lives. And now I know that when I talk about the ego, it might sound as if it is an evil entity possessing us, but it is not. It is our friend. It's a very good helper if we use it that way. The problem is just that the ego has been given the role of a leader for a very long time. And the ascension is about getting friends with our egos. And so some tools to be able to observe the ego is meditation. Just in a relaxed state, train ourselves to observe our thoughts so that we can get better at it in everyday life as well. Because this relaxed state is like the mental gym. We go to this gym to train our strength so that we can use it outside as well. And another really good tool is to have a conversation with the ego. Pretend that it is an entity. Something like, thank you so much, ego, for trying to help me. With emphasis on the trying, because trying is only trying. It won't get that far. But thank you so much, ego, for trying to help me, to keep me prepared. But you know what? You're keeping me prepared for the wrong things. I've got this. Leave this to me. When I am present in the now, I know what to say and what to do. I don't have to be prepared. And thank you so much for judging and analyzing everything. But you know what? I've got this. Don't you worry, ego. I will need you. I will need you when I want to plan things, when I want to analyze things, and when I want to solve problems. And I will call upon you then. But until then, you can rest. Leave this to me, and we will have a much better cooperation. This kind of conversation makes it more obvious to ourselves that we are not our thoughts. And the ego is quite scared of the ascension. Since it's only a construct of the past, that is what feels safe. And if anything new or very expansive comes, it feels like a threat to the ego. A threat to its role as our protector. Because how could it keep us safe if it doesn't know? And if it can't judge, if it doesn't know what it is, if it's good or bad, right and wrong, how could it keep us safe? That is also why it's so good to have this conversation. I've got this. In the present, I know what to do and I know what to say. So, now this whole video I've been talking about the ego and the subconscious mind as the only source of thought. It's not. There are thoughts in the now as well, and these thoughts are of a different kind. So the way to differentiate between thoughts from the ego and thoughts from your true self is how they feel. Because it is if we have three minds. We have the ego mind, the subconscious mind, and the conscious mind. And when we are in our conscious mind, that is when we are present. When we are in the now, in the only reality that exists, now and now. In our conscious mind, we have our creativity, our inspiration, our intuition. It is in our conscious minds that we can only experience true reality. And it is also in our conscious minds that we can experience true joy. So the thoughts in the conscious mind, they have a higher vibration to them. They feel lighter in the body because they come from a higher state of consciousness. And the thoughts from the ego mind, they have a certain heaviness to them because they originate in the past and they are often about the future. And it's very heavy and taxing on the body to try to be in places that don't exist. So the thoughts from the ego have this heaviness to them, and every thought has an emotional reaction, and every emotion has a thought answer. But when the ego is running our lives, when we identify with thoughts, and especially when we are in stress, thoughts always come first. And these thoughts in stress, they are thoughts of survival, they are fear-based. So these heavy thoughts lead to heavy emotion, and it gets into this negative spiral. But when we know this, we can do it the other way, because every emotion also has a thought answer. So when we know that we can choose to choose more consciously. So when we choose from our conscious mind, we can start by conjuring up the emotions first, so they can lead to lighter thoughts. And I have a video on how to conjure emotions and feelings, that is called. But it's so easy. It's just a question. It is so easy that the ego that loves complexity, it will say that it is too simple to work. It's a waste of time, don't do it. Achieve things instead. But it does work. And the simple question is, what would it feel like to be? For example, what would it feel like to be enough? A very good question to ask ourselves. To me, enoughness feels very light. It feels like a beautiful peace within and a beautiful emptiness. Enoughness also feels warm, and it feels around this area. To me, it's different for different people. So if you can catch yourself in stress and ask yourself this question, what would it feel like to be calm? Or enough, but what would it feel like to be calm? So that is the first part of this tool, to conjure emotions. And when you do this, when you ask this question, you are using the ego as a helper, because the ego loves to analyze. So when you ask a question, what would it feel like to be calm? The ego wants to analyze this. Yeah, what would it feel like to be calm? And the ego helps you to go and search for the physical feeling in the body, how calm feels. And some say that you can just affirm, I am calm, but that doesn't really work as well, since the ego loves to analyze and judge. So if you are in stress, then you say, I am calm. The ego starts analyzing this straight away, telling you, who are you trying to fool? You're not calm, you're in stress. And it doesn't work as well. So, since the ego is quite scared of the ascension, because it's new, it's something that hasn't happened before, it's unknown, and it wants to be able to protect us. It wants it to be as it was before. And everything is new in the ascension. And that is why some people's minds are getting really strong at this time. If we don't have our tools and use them, it can actually sometimes feel as if we're going crazy. No joke. That is why it's so important to have these tools and to use them. So, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for watching, because if you have stayed all the way to the end, it means you are dedicated to inner work. And this is not only for you, this helps other people as well, because this is contagious. Thank you.